What's going on, guys? JPS back for another video, and today we're going to be reacting to here's why Euro-Spec cars are safer and better looking, Euro-Spec versus North American spec. Now this video comes from Kurt Leem, and this is not the first video that I've reacted to of his. We've watched why driving in Europe is better than driving in the United States. And today, instead of looking at driving, we're going to look at the actual car. What about these Euro specifications make those vehicles safer and better looking? And this is something I've noticed. If you guys have watched my travel vlogs when I was over in Europe, when I was walking on the streets, I would always comment on the variety of vehicles. Obviously, seeing like hatchback models of cars that I see in the United States is just so weird. And cars just look a lot different in Europe than they do in North America and to what I'm used to. So today we're definitely going to learn a lot of new stuff because I don't know anything about European or North American specifications when it comes to vehicles. So let's get right into this.
North American spec cars and European spec cars. There's a lot of differences between North American spec vehicles and European spec vehicles. And I don't mean just the size or the types of vehicles offered, but actually the legal and regulatory differences between North American spec cars and European spec cars. It's something that the average consumer probably doesn't know, but car enthusiasts know about these differences, and we often refer to EU spec or rest of world spec versus North American spec. Today I want to cover the differences between North American spec vehicles and European spec vehicles, and why I believe European spec vehicles are actually safer than North American spec vehicles because of these differences. So let's jump into it. So before moving to the Netherlands, I was used to North American spec vehicles and the look of North American spec vehicles. Things like amber parking lights, side markers, red turn signals. But actually, after living in the Netherlands and spending more time with European spec vehicles, I realized European specs are actually safer and actually better looking. You don't have the amber parking signal, you don't have amber turn signals in the rear. You know, there's a lot of these differences I'm going to jump into. So go ahead and use the chapter markers if you want to bounce around and see the differences, but I'm going to cover all of these in a bit more detail.
Dude, I always notice those parking signals in the United States on cars. I also wonder, I'm like, why are those even there? I don't get it.
So it's worth mentioning that the US and Canadian specs are pretty much the same. Canada uses kilometers and requires daytime running lights, but aside from that, basically the specs of the cars and the regulatory differences are the same between Canada and the United States. Europe has a different spec, and it's also in line with a lot of other countries that's outside of Europe, and those are the main differences that I'm going to compare today. All right, the first thing is the one that I'm the most passionate about, and that's red turn signals versus amber turn signals. The rest of the world has amber turn signals like this. It is safer, it is easier to distinguish between the brake lights and the turn signal. The rest of the world does this. In North America, red turn signals are allowed. And not just red turn signals, but actually the same light fixture that's used as the brake sometimes is used as the turn signal. In some cars, it's a separate bulb from the brake light, but they're still red. In this case, in the Mercury Grand Marquis, as you can see, it's the brake light that's flashing to be the turn signal. This has always driven me nuts, even when I lived back in the States, because it's hard to distinguish when a car is braking versus turning. You have to pay a little bit more attention because it's hard to distinguish, you know, is the red light turning on because it's the brakes? Is it turning on because it's the turn signal? Sometimes bulbs are out and it's hard to tell. So I've always been passionate about this. This is how it should be. This is how the rest of the world is, and this is how it should be.
And also another comment about this, it varies based on the car and the model and everything. Like some cars can be especially difficult to see the difference between turning and braking, especially when it is the same light like you said. So this car is a good example of it. It's not very easy to tell, and it will take a little bit extra time to register that someone is turning rather than just braking. Maybe not much time, but any time is significant, especially when it's happening with all these different people on the road, all these different cars. Like, I'm sure that it's caused accidents before. And also, bro, like, safety aside, this looks sexy. That amber turn signal on that BMW looks really, really good. So I don't get why we don't have it either. And I don't know if this is the most fair comparison too, because this car already just looks way better than this, so that's already going to create some psychological bias. But anyways,
But this is allowed in North America, and it's actually quite common. And I've even heard from American car people that they prefer the look of the red turn signal, even though amber is objectively safer. So the Mercury Grand Marquis, even though it's here in the Netherlands, actually has red turn signals. The Netherlands is one of the few countries in the world that does allow red turn signals. There are some European countries and other countries that do allow it. So it's one of the things I didn't have to adapt when I brought the car over here. But objectively, I believe the amber turn signal is much better. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you prefer, red turn signals or amber turn signals? There's even a whole Facebook group dedicated to this. I think a lot of people are passionate about this topic, but yeah, I believe amber turn signals are much better and much safer for drivers. The next big difference that I want to cover is amber parking lights, or side markers as they're also called. It's a bit hard to see here because in the Mercury they changed out the bulb, but in North America, most cars have an amber side marker parking light that is required as part of the headlight system. Whereas you see here on the BMW, the parking lights don't require that. And if you look at a US spec BMW 3 Series, there's a big amber side marker light here, which I think is quite ugly. It's a look that I was used to back when I lived in the States, but actually after living abroad, I realized this is a much cleaner look. And actually, what value does that amber side marker light add? I don't think it's necessary. Much cleaner look. Here on the Mercury,
I've been asking that question for years. I'm telling you guys right now, I'll see an insane looking, let's just say a Hellcat, bro. See a Hellcat, and they just got that side marker. I'm like, why? Like, I feel like that stands out the most on the car, especially if you're looking at it from the side. You see that first. I see that first. It's like one of my biggest pet peeves. I don't know. The same way this guy feels about amber turn signals, I feel that way about the side marker. I think I called it the parking light earlier. I didn't even know what the name of it was. It just pisses me off.
They converted the light to white, but it was an amber parking light, the same here. But yeah, it's just a difference that I don't think is necessary, and I think the European spec looks a lot better than North American spec. The next big difference is side turn signal indicators. So the EU and pretty much the rest of the world require side turn signal indicators. Most of the time they're integrated in the mirror like this now, but back in the day they used to be side mounted on the fender like you see on the Mercury here. North America doesn't require this, and to me this is a key safety feature because when you're driving alongside a car and you want to know if that car is going to be moving into your lane, you can't see the front and rear turn signals if they're signaling their lane change. Side marker indicators are key, and really key is safety feature. Nowadays, most new cars in the US do have side marker indicators on the mirrors because it's kind of seen as a luxury feature, and I think it's something that the European brands kind of influence in the North American market. And actually, if you look at something like a Toyota Corolla or a Hyundai in the US, by default, they don't have the side marker turn signals, but higher end trims do because it's kind of seen as a luxury feature because of the European branding.
It's totally a luxury feature. That's why not every vehicle has it. I don't understand why that's the case. It's not that difficult or expensive to implement that. So again, bro, we're just, and out of any country, bro, the United States needs those side mirror turn signals more than anyone because people drive like maniacs. They're constantly cutting between lanes. Highway systems are a joke. There's no system to stay to the right or, pass on the left. It doesn't work like that. So people are constantly bobbing in and out of lanes. We need those side turn signals more than anyone else.
So it's in North America. But I do think this is a really key safety feature that should be required on all vehicles around the world. And it surprises me that in North America, it's not a safety requirement. It's not a required feature at all. Next thing I want to cover is rear fog lights. So in the EU and most other markets around the world, rear fog lights are a required feature or are just featured on cars. And they're usually on the driver's side or the center point of the vehicle. In this case, on the 3 Series, it's just on the driver's side. Personally, I would prefer if it was on both sides. But this helps with rearward visibility in poor conditions such as fog or heavy rain. And this is a really key safety feature that I wish was available or actually required in the United States and Canada, because I've been in many situations in Florida in really heavy rain where you can't see very far in front of you, you can't see the car in front of you. And what people in Florida do are put on their hazard lights so you can improve the visibility, which is illegal and is kind of a dumb workaround. Rear fog lights solve that problem. This is something that should be standard in the US and Canada. And actually, on European brand cars in the US and Canada, they do offer the feature. They actually just ship it there anyway. It's not required, but they leave the configuration as is, and they have the rear fog lights. And the funny thing that I see is people don't know how to use rear fog lights in the US and Canada. You can see some B-roll footage here of cars in Canada driving around with rear fog lights on in normal conditions, because actually I believe that people don't know the difference between the buttons and they think that these are regular fog lights, but they're actually rear fog lights being misused. So it's really funny to me, but I think if there was education and regulatory requirements in the United States and Canada for rear fog lights, people would use them and it would improve safety in poor visibility conditions.
Driver education in the United States? Come on, bro. You must have. He's been in Netherlands for too long. He doesn't even know. I see so much misuse. I see headlights on in the middle of the day. I see no headlights on at night. Fog lights are minor compared to the just lack of everything I see on the road nowadays, guys. It pains me to just think about.
However, is something that I notice each time that I'm switching between this vehicle and the BMW is the side mirrors. And this was something I didn't even really know about before living here. So in North America, the side mirrors on cars are a little bit different. The driver's side is pretty flat, and the passenger side is a bit more convex, but then it has this text in it that you see, objects in mirror are closer than they appear. So you have different focal lengths for each of the mirrors. On the passenger side, it helps with the blind spot and side visibility, but on the driver's side, it's quite flat, and you have a pretty big blind spot. On the EU-Spec mirrors, both are convex, and there's even a part that acts like a blind spot mirror. So it's objectively safer because you have a wider field of view, you have a smaller blind spot. The problem is the image is wider and the vehicles are a little bit smaller, which affects your perception of the size. And so in North America, they only allow that on the passenger side, which to me, it's a safety thing. If you allow it on both sides of the car, you have better field of view, smaller blind spot, and it's objectively safe. Next difference is license
and also
plate.
people will become acquainted with that, and they'll realize that perception is not reality. Like the same reason why they have to put the objects in mirror are closer than they appear, bro. Like what?
And you can see American and Canadian style license plates are a lot smaller. In some cars they look okay, like this Grand Marquis was obviously designed for the smaller license plate. But in some other cars, this small format doesn't look very good. It doesn't complement the design of cars very well. And in my opinion, actually, the American and Canadian size license plate is a little bit less safe because the characters are smaller. You can see with it here, if I were to take a Florida license plate and put it on a BMW 3 Series, which is probably the first time this has been done, you can see how small it is in comparison to the Dutch license plate. The letters are a lot smaller. It's harder to see from further back. And actually, I think the Dutch license plate and the kind of European-style wide license plate complements the look of the car a little bit better, especially in the front. So I think it's safer and it just looks better to have the European-style license plates. Now, this varies a lot. Different countries have different regulations about license plate sizes. I'm not going to go into all of those details, but let me know what you prefer. Do you prefer the European-style license plates or do you prefer the American-style license plate?
I mean, obviously the European for safety because the characters are bigger and it's much more simple. But at the same time, in the United States, we have such a variety of license plates. Like you can get personalized and vanity plates. You can put whatever you want on your license plate. You can get custom characters. There's different backgrounds for your state. There's a million different combinations that you could do for your license plate that a lot of people don't even know about. So that side of things is cool. I don't think that level of customization exists in Europe. But at the same time, this license plate does look really good. It's easy to read. I've always have been a fan of it. I like how they have the country over here. I don't know. But I get what he's saying. Like I see big SUVs and some really nice cars, and the United States license plate does not complement them whatsoever. It just looks really dumb. It looks super small and sometimes not placed well. This is a whole nother video we could get into about license plates.
Let me know in the comments below. Ultimately, I do wish that the regulations would align from North America to the rest of the world, because that would actually allow for European-spec vehicles and other vehicles that are currently not sold in the North American market to actually be sold there, because the regulations would align and that would be allowed. But until those regulations align, which I don't think that'll ever happen, we'll have differences between North American spec vehicles and European and rest of the world spec vehicles. So that's pretty much it. Those are the main differences I wanted to cover between EU spec vehicles and North American spec vehicles. Like I said from the beginning, I prefer the look and safety features of European spec vehicles, but there are also some features I didn't cover in North American spec vehicles that are nice, like remote start, how some states don't require front license plates, different safety features, and there's a lot of other differences that you can't see, such as suspension differences, tire differences. I can't cover all of those in one video, but these were the things that I wanted to cover that you can really see when you look at the two different vehicles, and those are the differences that I like on European spec vehicles. Let me know what you think in the comments below.
I want to know if European vehicles have to be lower, because I've noticed that United States vehicles, when they're stock, they are really high, bro. My car is like it's ridiculously high. This one too, you can kind of see. So I don't know. That would be my biggest question after this. But this was a really good video. We're gonna cut it here. Big shout out to Curleem. Make sure you guys sub to his channel. Link to this video will be in the description. And yeah, that was why Euro specification cars are safer and better looking. Definitely agree with this. I think we need to rewrite some of our legislation in the United States, but I feel that way about lots of things, not just cars. So I don't know. Everything's a mess. It's kind of just throw everything in and go for it. That's basically the United States. That's what happens when you merge onto a highway. You're just basically going for it because you have no idea what's going to happen in that. Even if you're driving for 10 miles, a lot can happen during that time, and it's unpredictable, and just like this country. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.